Hey everyone, and welcome to part 9 of Let's Clone a Pokemon Game. So in this tutorial we're going to be going over how to set up a simple teleport system. So we're going to be teleporting into a cave, one cave entrance, and coming out another, and then vice versa, being able to go back into the exit and come out in the entrance. Now before we get started with that, I actually went ahead and I changed up the tag system a little bit. Since we're not going to be using these trees for anything special or cliffs for anything special, I didn't want to create multiple tags for a simple collision object. So what I did was just went and created a new tag for collision, and I just named it collision, and I added it to all these. And what you want to go do is actually, let's bring this up, go back to our movement and just change it from tree to collision for each one. And this will allow us to not only put collision on these trees, but we could also put it, for a cave wall and stuff, how we have collision there. So anything that requires collision, we'll just mark it as collision, and our player won't be able to walk there. So it's a lot easier than creating like a tree, search for tree tag, search for cliff tag when they're all the same thing. Nothing different about that. So once you get all that set up, we're going to need to set up a couple of things for this cave system. So you're going to want to create a cave entrance. I just duplicated a tile and I made this one a trigger, and so we'll be able to walk on this. But I had a couple of issues with this. When I put it right here on the main part, so let's set this back to 0, it doesn't work that way. For whatever reason, it does not want to function correctly. I think it's because, or when I move from this tile to this tile, somehow it's still calling a collision. And Unity does not like when you use decimal points for where these triggers are placed. So if I set this to 0.5 or any of these other numbers for 0.5, they just won't work for whatever reason. So I just moved it up one, so it's actually off the tile, but for some reason it still works, so I guess we'll just leave it at that. So just put it above where your cave is. And then what you want to do is you want to create another cave entrance, or the one to the actual cave itself. And I threw the trigger over here, so this is -1. Just like that. So now that we have our two sections set up, we can jump into our code real quick, and we're going to be adding a new function to this. And Unity has a built-in function for onTriggerEnter, and pretty much what onTriggerEnter is when your character collides with a trigger, or whatever object this script is attached to. So onTriggerEnter is in the player stats script, which is on my player, so it's going to be detecting what my player is stepping on. And we can also take that collision variable and do GameObject.tag and find a tag object. So cave entrance 1. This is going to be our cave entrance 1. I already went through and created 2 more tags for cave entrance 1 and cave exit 1. Now we might change this up in the future so we don't have so many triggers to walk into, but I guess for now this will work just fine. It doesn't really matter how many tags you have, but yeah. So, and then we also create a tag for cave exit 1, and that's going to be for this one right here, cave exit 1. And so what we're going to be doing with this, we're going to create one new variable that we can actually use to store where our teleport points are. So instead of creating a million different variables, a good way to keep track of variables that are very similar is to use an array. And this will allow us to put all our teleport locations within this and access them. So we'll jump back in here. So after you create that variable and save it, we'll go into our player real quick, and you'll see teleport loc. Drop it down, add size to it. I added 10, and I added 2 points here, or 2 game objects. So the 2 game objects I added here, first one, element 0, is actually this tile that's located right in front of the cave. And so what you want to do is drag and drop that game object into that 0 point. And then for the next one, you want to throw this tile on. So it's both the tiles that are in front, and so when we go in here, we will teleport here, And when we go in here, we'll teleport here. One other thing you want to do to actually get this to work correctly is we're going to go and highlight our player, and you're going to need to add a rigid body. So if you go to component, or let's see, component, physics, and rigid body, and that'll attach to your player. Now you're going to want to uncheck gravity, and you want to go down to constraints and check all these, because we don't have any physics or anything like that. No gravity. We don't want to mess with any of that. We just want the rigid body so we can interact with different triggers. So with that being said, everything should be set up fine. We're going to need one more piece of code when we do collide with these, and we'll be using this.transform.position. So it's taking our player's current X, Y, and Z position, and it's equaling it to teleport loc 0. Now teleport loc 0, if we go down here real quick, is this one right here, element 0. So it goes in order from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Just like that. So teleport loc 0 dot transform dot position. So we're taking that position of that tile and we are placing our player at that position. Now it's going to be centered at it, so it might be colliding with it. So what we want to do is after we change the position of our player, we also want to just change the position of our player from the Y position. So, yep. And then plus 10, so it puts it above the ground. And we want to do the same thing for cave exit 1, except instead of 0, we want a 1. And we can go and save that out, and we can go test this real quick. So we'll walk along in front of our cave, and we have collision there, and we walk inside, and then we get teleported there. We can walk around. Oh, and I guess it so calls it over there. But we're going to put collision there, so it's not going to matter. So yeah, as soon as we walk in, we're teleported there, and we can just go back and forth as many times as we want. So we're also going to be using this system for shops and stuff like that. So we're just going to be changing up the tags and adding them to the different objects themselves. So that's a simple way to get teleporting working, and hopefully in our next tutorial we can do something a little bit more interesting than that. But we're still just trying to set up the basic mechanics for this game until we start getting into the more advanced stuff. But until then, I will see you guys next tutorial.